War is never as simple as friend versus foe. Sometimes it begins with good intentions, promises of alliance, and shared faith, but ends in betrayal, devastation, and mistrust. Few episodes in medieval history capture this tragic irony better than the Crusades against the Byzantine Empire between the late 11th and 13th centuries. Western European crusaders, supposedly united by Christianity, repeatedly clashed with the Byzantines' fellow Christians, destroying cities, undermining empires, and leaving a legacy of suspicion that would last for centuries. The Byzantine Empire in the 11th century was a civilization of immense sophistication and endurance. Constantinople, the imperial capital, was a city of glittering churches, bustling markets, and formidable fortifications. Its emperors wielded both spiritual and political authority, ruling a complex, multi-ethnic empire that had survived for centuries. As the Eastern heir of Rome, Byzantine culture combined classical Greek, learning with Christian faith, producing art, literature, and law that would influence generations. Yet despite its strength, Byzantium faced constant threats. To the east lay the rising Seljuk Turks, whose armies had begun conquering Anatolia. To the west, Europe was awakening from feudal fragmentation, uniting only in the name of religion. When Emperor Alexios I Komnenos requested military aid from the west to repel Turkish advances in 1095, he could not have imagined that his allies would bring both salvation and destruction. Pope Urban II answered the call with the call for the First Crusade, rallying knights, nobles, and peasants across Europe. Their mission was ostensibly to recover the Holy Land from Muslim control. Yet the journey to Constantinople would reveal deep misunderstandings and competing ambitions. Western crusaders, unfamiliar with Byzantine culture, mistrusted the Byzantines' political sophistication. Byzantine leaders, in turn, viewed the Western knights as undisciplined, reckless, and dangerously ambitious. When Crusader armies reached Constantinople, tensions escalated. Alexios demanded oaths of loyalty and assistance in exchange for supplies and safe passage. Many Western leaders complied, but not all. Differences in language, culture, and military tradition created a fragile alliance. The Crusaders relied on Byzantine ships and resources, yet often ignored imperial authority once past the city walls. Small disputes escalated, foreshadowing the tragedies to come. The First Crusade ultimately succeeded in capturing Jerusalem in 1099, but the Byzantines received little credit and far fewer tangible benefits. Western knights established new Crusader states on former Byzantine territories, claiming lands the empire considered rightfully theirs. Resentment grew on both sides, sowing seeds of distrust that would bloom in later decades. By the time of the Fourth Crusade in 1202, these tensions reached a catastrophic peak. Originally intended to strike at Muslim-held Jerusalem, Crusader leaders diverted their campaign due to political and financial pressure. Venice, a maritime power, demanded payment for transporting the army. Unable to meet the debts, the Crusaders agreed to assist in deposing a Byzantine emperor, Alexios IV, who had promised gold and support in exchange for Western aid. The result was disaster. Crusader forces attacked Constantinople in 1204, sacking the city with brutal efficiency. Churches, palaces, and libraries were looted or destroyed. Ancient treasures, some irreplaceable, vanished forever. Iconoclasm and indiscriminate violence left the population traumatized. Constantinople, once the jewel of Christendom, was reduced to ruins. The Crusaders installed a Latin emperor, establishing the short-lived Latin Empire, while Byzantium fractured into smaller successor states. The consequences were immense. Byzantium, weakened and divided, never fully recovered. Its economic and military power declined sharply. Western Europe, meanwhile, had demonstrated that shared faith was insufficient to prevent greed, ambition, and cultural prejudice from overriding alliances. Trust between East and West deteriorated permanently, contributing to centuries of tension between Orthodox and Catholic Christianity. Historians often highlight several key lessons from these events. First, military alliance alone cannot ensure cooperation when political and cultural priorities differ. The Crusaders and Byzantines shared a faith, but their political goals were misaligned. Second, reliance on mercenary forces or external armies carries risk. Leaders must balance immediate need against long-term consequences. Third, unchecked ambition, even under the guise of religious mission, can devastate allies more than enemies. The Crusades against the Byzantines also illustrate how perception shapes conflict. Western Europeans viewed Byzantium as decadent and weak, despite its centuries-long survival against multiple enemies. Byzantines saw Western knights as barbaric and arrogant, valuing plunder over strategy. Misunderstanding fueled preconceptions, and preconceptions fueled betrayal. In this sense, the tragedy was psychological as much as military. Cultural destruction was another enduring consequence. Libraries and archives holding centuries of knowledge were destroyed or dispersed. Artifacts vanished or were stolen, and the transmission of Byzantine learning to the West became fragmentary. Ironically, while the Crusades weakened Byzantium, they also indirectly contributed to the later Renaissance in Western Europe, as displaced scholars carried knowledge, manuscripts, and ideas westward. The human cost of the Crusades against Byzantium cannot be overstated. Thousands died, including civilians, soldiers, and clergy. Entire neighborhoods in Constantinople were burned, and surviving populations were displaced. Social structures collapsed temporarily. Economic networks were shattered, leaving long-term poverty and insecurity. The attack on a fellow Christian city underlines the tragic complexity of history. Shared religion was not enough to prevent violence. Despite the devastation, Byzantium survived in various successor states, such as Nicaea, Trebizond, and Epirus. These regions preserved Byzantine traditions, eventually allowing the empire to reassert itself partially under the restored emperor in Constantinople in 1261. Yet the empire would never regain its previous strength, leaving it vulnerable to future conquests, particularly by the rising Ottoman Turks. The Crusades against Byzantium offer timeless lessons in power, diplomacy, and human behavior. They show how miscommunication, cultural prejudice, and ambition can turn allies into enemies. They demonstrate the fragility of trust, the dangers of short-term thinking, and the moral costs of prioritizing immediate gain over long-term stability. They remind us that civilizations can be destroyed not just by external enemies, but by internal disunity and betrayal from supposed friends. Even today, these events resonate. Modern societies often confront alliances challenged by differing priorities, cultures, or interpretations of shared values. The collapse of cooperation between the Byzantines and Western Crusaders serves as a cautionary tale. Without mutual respect, understanding, and restraint, even aligned powers can become destructive to one another. So here's the question history leaves us with. When nations or groups claim to share common values or goals, how can they avoid the mistakes of the Crusades against Byzantium, where friendship turned to devastation and shared faith failed to prevent violence? If this exploration of the Crusades against the Byzantines helped you see history's lessons more clearly, please like the video, share it with others who value understanding the past, and subscribe to the channel so these stories are remembered, reflected upon, and never forgotten.